Good day, class. Welcome to another class today. Today we'll be talking about trouser. I'll try to be fast so that the video will not be very long. Alright, so the first thing we'll be doing is we'll be taking 1 inch at the top of our paper as the borderline. 1 inch borderline at the upper part, which will serve as our waistline. Then on this side we'll be having 1 inch borderline as well. Okay, so moving forward, the measurements that we'll be needing for this class are the round waist circumference, the round hip circumference, the round knee, and the round ankle. Then we need the waist to hip measurement, we need the crotch measurement, and then we also need the round thigh measurement. Now for the round waist for this class, we'll be using 33 for this class, we'll be using 44 for the hip, we'll be using 18 for the knee, we'll be using 13 for the ankle. For waist to hip, we'll be using 9.5. For the crouch depth, there's where we usually take the crouch depth. If you're doing a high waist trouser, you're going to be dividing your hip by 3. 44 divided by 3, whatever you get, your answer is going to be used when you're doing a high waist trouser. Maybe if someone wants to be wearing a crop top on trouser, like the high waist trouser, really high above the waistline, then if it's our regular, just to be on, just be moderate, all you need to do is divide the hip by 4 and add 1.5 or 1 inch to it. That will do. All right, 1 inch, maybe 1.5 for ease and all of that. Then another method you can use to get your crotch depth is if you tell your client to sit on a hard surface, like a flat surface like this, all right, and then you measure from the waistline of the person to the flat surface where the person is seated. Okay, you tell the person to sit down upright, not bent in a way, like sitting upright, and then you measure from the waistline where the person is going to be placing the trouser down to the flat surface where the person is seated. All right, now that we have all this correct, let's get straight into class. All right, so let's assume for this class I'll be using the hip divided by 4 method plus 1 inch that I'll be using for this class. All right, so let's assume I'm not doing the high waist type. All right, so if I'm doing that, will be 11 plus 1 inch, that will be 12 inches. Okay, so now, but because there's going to be a band on this trouser, I'll be removing 2 inches from this, and that will mean I'll be shifting 2 inches upward outside the waistline, and then I'll start taking all my measurements from there. All right, so this is my 12 inches. Let me confirm. This is my 12 inches. I will roll a straight line there. The next, I would be measuring my waist to hip. 9.5 is what we're using for this class. Roll a straight line there. We'll still be highlighting with our marker pen so we can see clearly. Now, to get your thigh measurement for an adult, you want to come down from the crotch line by 3 inches. Come down from the crotch line by 3 inches to get your thigh measurement. Connect your lines together. I want to get the full length out. So for this pattern, I can only get Oh, okay. 36.5, because that is how far our pattern can go. Of course, if your length is longer than that, that means you have to join some pieces of you're going to join paper to the lower part of it to give you that extension to get your full length that you need. So, but for this class, I will be making use of what we have on this pattern. So, I want to start highlighting all the lines out. That's our full length. This is our tie measurement. This is the crotch line. This is the hip line. And this is our waistline. And of course, this is the borderline by the side. So moving forward, the next thing we're going to be taking is our hip line, our hip measurement. So let me label this. This is the waist, this is the hip, this is the crotch, and this is the, let me say the lap, and then this is the M. So I come to my hip line. I'm going to be placing my hip measurement there, which is 11. I'll place that same 11 on my crotch line and also on my waistline. I'll connect the three together. This way. At the front, center front, because this is where the crotch is, where we have the zip in front of our trousers, and this is the side towards the hip of your trouser. So this is the center front, and this is the center, this is side front. I come inward by half of an inch. Why am I coming in half of an inch at this location? The reason is because there is no bump in front of our waist, so we want that place to give us that flat effect that we're supposed to have there, because we have a flat tummy in front. All right, so from here we have taken away anything that would create any form of bulge by this half inch that we've done. Okay, the next thing we want to do is to create our crotch extension for the front, because the front crotch extension is absolutely different from the back crotch extension totally. All right, so how do we get a crotch extension for the front? I could probably just say I'll divide my hip by 8, and whatever it is that it gives me, I'm going to place that figure there. Or I can come here, what I have between this line and this line, you know, this is my hip divided by 4, then I'll divide this place also by 4 again. So I divided it into 2 now. I'm going to divide it again into 2, making it 4 altogether, and that figure I'll be transferring it here. And so this is what I have here. So now I'll bring in my curve, my pencil, and I'll connect this together. Okay, then I'll go with my permanent marker, my marker pen rather. So give it the permanent line that we'll be needing. All right, so that is that for that. The next thing I want to do is to centralize my measurements. I want to know the center of this trouser, so that by the time I place all my measurements on the lap and on the knee and on the knee and on the M, my measurements will be aligned. It will be on the center. the seam allowances by the side and at the middle will not be shifting to the other side. I'm sorry, I'm a bit fast. I am trying to make this video very short so it's not too long. All right, but of course, you know, you can always ask questions. Right, now that line that I'm trying to centralize is where you see the crease line, such that when you iron your trouser, there's a line in front of your trouser. So that is what we're trying to create right now. And how do we get to create a line? Is by dividing our crotch extension all the way to the beginning to the end, all the way from here to here, by 2. We'll look for the midpoint by 2. And so for what I have here, I have, okay, this is my midpoint here. I'll transfer that midpoint to all of my lines. Now I've forgotten to take my knee line. So how do I get my knee line? I'll come here and I will measure all the way to the end of the trouser, and I'll divide it by 2. So from the crotch line to the end of my trouser, the full length of the trouser, I'll be dividing it by 2, looking for the midpoint. Once I get the midpoint, I will mark it down. Please pay attention at this point. Whatever it is that we have there is what I will be having here as well. And I'll connect that with a broken line. I am saying a broken line because it is not the permanent line, and I will explain. Now, the reason why I'm using a broken line for this part is because if we use this part to if we take our round knee measurement on this line, we're going to be having difficulties when we are probably walking with the trouser or when we're trying to sit. All right, so you know, when you sit, when you're walking your knee, there's a way it goes this way, back and forth, right? So it is stretching, or you know, it needs movement around that point. So if I take my original knee measurement around this location, that means that place is going to be rigid. All right, it will not have free movement. Okay, so when I want to do this, I would have to move my measurement upward a bit by 1.5. all right, 1.5. So if I go up by 1.5, I have moved away from that line where the knee bone, the kneecap itself is. All right, that ball, I'm coming upward a bit by 1.5. So now this is where I'm going to be having my knee measurement, making this place to have some form of ease of movement whenever I'm walking or I'm trying to sit comfortably. I hope we understand what I just said at that point. If you do not understand, please ask questions. It is very important to ask questions. Okay, so this is not going to be our permanent line for our knee. Okay, now that we know our center lines, we are going to impute all our measurements. Let me quickly identify this one, and then I'll be rolling a straight line connecting all the lines together to have our center line, so that when we are imputing our measurements, we'll be on track with everything. All right, now we have that there. Let me highlight it with our marker. All right, now every measurement I'm going to be putting is now going to be divided evenly on these lines, this side and this side, this side and this side, this side and this side. So it's not like one is going too much on one side or something. Okay, so now I want to start imputing my measurements. You might wonder, why didn't I take it all the way up? All right, let's go. My measurement for the waist is going to be starting from this point, not from here, not from here to this side, not from here to this side, but rather from here to this side. Okay, so for the waist of this person, 33 divided by 4 is going to give us 8.25. So sometimes you can say you want to add a dart to your trouser in front. Personally, I don't really like to put a dart in front, not because it's not it's not good, not because it's not beautiful, but you know, it's just a personal thing. But of course, why not put a dart in yours? And how will you put a dart? You're going to come to this point, from this place to this place, you're going to divide it into two, get the midpoint, and that is where your dart is going to sit. All right, wherever that is. So let's see, we have this here, so the dart will be here. So from here, of course, you go out by half, go in by half, and then you connect from here to here. Okay, remember, all your measurements will be without the band, the 2 inches that we discussed the other time. So you can come here and impute your dart as you want to have a dart there. But like I said, personally, I may not be putting a dart on my trouser. Okay, so when you are doing that, do not forget that you have to return whatever it is you have taken away from there and place it back on this side, not here. Place it back here, and then we can do our connection. But like I said, I will not be needing the dart, so I'll be taking it off for myself. But I only explained that for the sake of the video and the class. Now, that being said, I have my waist measurements given. Now, before I can continue, I will come down to this point here and create something like a little bit of shape there, just to, you know, give it a little bit of shape, so it's not looking also boring and all of that, and to eradicate any form of bulge that might want to, you know, come up from there. So I came down from this up line down by ½ inch. All right, moving forward, my lap for this person is 27, right? Okay, I didn't write that down. It's 27 that I'm using for this person. Let's assume 27. We'll be doing 27 divided by 4. 27 divided by 4. Okay, so I come here, I put 1/2 of it here, I put the other half of it here. Okay, I come to my thigh, my knee is 18. My knee is 18, so that would be 4.5. The 18 divided by 4, that's 4.5. So I'll put 4.5 here, and I'll also put 4.5 here. Altogether 9. The round ankle is 13 divided by 2, that's 6.5. That will be 6.25. Okay, so we go this, and then I have this. Okay, so we can now connect all our measurements together using our marker pen. Come to this other side and do the same thing. Now here, 2 things can happen. I can either connect with a straight line this way, or I can use this part. So when can I use this part and when can I use this part? Now, for me to use this part, I'm considering the fact that this person probably has a fat thigh, right? And we have a little bit of flesh around this part of the person's thighs. So I want to create something that looks like a little bit of curve to accommodate, you know, extra flesh that might be there. But if the person is a slim person, has a slim thigh, of course, why not? You can go with your flat, the straight line, you're gonna be fine. But if the person is, you know, a little bit on the plus size, you want to give them a little bit of access, you know, a little bit of ease right there for the extra flesh to be able to sit comfortably. Now moving on to the back of our trouser. Usually the back of the trouser is usually higher than the front. Okay, so at the back, center back of the trouser, we are raising it up by 1 inch or 1.5 or 1.25. Now it varies. What are the conditions for making it, you know, like that? I usually use this method. Sometimes if I just, you know, see my client, I'll be like, oh, this person is a little bit on the plus size, has a big bum, right? So I want to probably raise the trouser up a little bit. You know, those butts that are usually very protruded at the back and, you know, looking so beautiful. You want to probably cover them up a little bit by going up, say, by 1.5 or 1.075 or 2. 2 is the max, no matter how big the person is. In fact, sometimes I try to avoid using 2, you know, entirely, but you know, 1.5, 1.2, 1.075 is very okay. 1 inch is okay. 0.75 also is okay for probably an extremely small person, all right, maybe a teenager or something. Okay, so but for this class I'll be doing 1 inch, and my 1 inch is going to be starting from this my slanted line in front, okay, upwards. Okay, so I'm going to be using 1 inch for this class. It is always good to have this trouser raised up at this point because you do not want to expose the client's bum when she is probably sitting down, all right, and then her underwear is now showing. That's gonna be bad for the client. Okay, now at this point here I'm going to come out by 1.5 to get my sewing allowance and every other thing I'll be needing for that part. So this is 1.5. I'm trying to use a black pen to, you know, so we can probably another color of pen so we can see the difference between the front and the back. Now coming to the back crotch, the crotch extension for the back is usually different from that of the front, and the reason is because we have a bump at the back. All right, so how do we achieve that? I'll come to my tie line, this crotch line again. Then from this crotch line, you know, we have our hip measurement here. So from this hip measurement to this point, I want to look for the midpoint of that. Wherever it gives me, this is 11, that means the midpoint for this guy is going to be 5.5, right? So from this 5.5, I'm now going to measure my hip divided by 4 again, which is 11, towards the back. Towards the back. Please, you can ask questions. I know I'm a bit fast, but of course, questions are always allowed in this class. Always allowed in this class. Send a DM or whatever, anything that is you're comfortable with. I'll be ready to answer all your questions. So from that point, I'll be coming down by 0.25. Why am I coming down by 0.25? Is because the bum is there, so I want to create a little bit of ease at that point where the bum will be seated. Okay, you don't want to go all flat, you know, so that it won't be too uncomfortable for your clients. All right, so I come in here with my curve. I want to see how I can get this clearly. Let me go here with my free hand and see if I can get something out there. So from that 1.5 here, I'm connecting it to the crotch for the back. Okay, so let's assume this is what we can use for here. Now from here, I'll be taking 1.5 inches at this point for my allowance. 1.5 inches at this point as well for my allowance, and then I'll connect every part of them together, and this is going to be for the back, and we are done with our trouser block for today. Okay, so like I said, this is the front, and then this is the back. Of course, when you're cutting, you'll be cutting the back first, then you now come and cut the front. So when you are adding your sewing allowance, right now the way it is, this is the way it's going to be on your part, on your fabric, whatever it is you're using, be it an African print or whatever. And then you add your 1 inch sewing allowance on this side. All right, just on this side alone, do not add anything to this side. Do you understand? You've already added your sewing allowance 1.5 here, and that is going to serve for both the front and the back allowance around this region. Of course, normally trousers are meant to be that the back pattern, or the back piece is supposed to be bigger than the front piece, because of course the back is wider and all of that. Do you understand? And then, so since we have this here, the only thing that is now left for you to do is to impute your 1 inch seam allowance on this side before you go ahead to start stitching. I hope we all understand, and if we have any questions, please do well to ask questions. I will be very, very available to answer all questions. Thank you so much for joining class today, and have a lovely day. Bye.